The final parasha of the Torah, VeZot HaBeracha, is Moshe's final address to the Jewish people before he passed away. Interestingly, it's always read on Simchat Torah, and therefore, unless that happens to fall on Shabbat, it's never read on Shabbat. So it's an unusual parasha in that sense. The Lubavitch Rebbe has 3 interesting questions on this parasha in 3 different sichas, and I'm just going to summarize them for you now. The first one is, this week's parasha contains a very famous pasuk. Torah siva lanu Moshe, marasha kihilat Yaakov. The Torah that Moshe commanded us is the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. So what is the importance of this pasuk? And why do Chazal say that we are meant to teach our children this pasuk as their very first pasuk? What's so unique about it, and what is it coming to teach? So it's coming to teach that the Torah is an inheritance. What is an inheritance? An inheritance is not something that you buy, it's not something that you earn, it's not even a gift. It is something that is yours, but just by being born. You receive it just by existing. It's passed on to you by your parents, and it is addressed to you personally by Hashem himself. Every single Jew receives the Torah just by being born, and they should see it like that, as a love letter from Hashem to guide them through life, to help them with their mission, and above all, help them get to know themselves, their soul, and God. Every Jew will see the Torah in their own way. There are 600,000 different perspectives on the Torah, and every Jewish soul stems from one of the 600,000 Jews that were at Sinai, which pertain to one of the letters of the Torah, and every single Jew has their own chidushim, and their own personal relationship with the Torah is personal. That's the key point. And also, we teach this to children at a young age because we don't want them to start off on the wrong foot thinking that the Torah is just another body of knowledge, even a profound body of knowledge. It's not. It's much more personal and intimate than that. It's much more alive than that. And also it comes to teach us that even a baby can learn truth from the Torah. Even the youngest child, the moment he can speak, has something he can learn from the Torah, because the Torah is available on all levels. There is a lesson at every single level. And as you grow up and as you mature, you relearn the same stories and the same mitzvahs, and you see them in a whole new light, a deeper light, and it goes on and on and on. We have a Har Sinai event every year of our life. So it is indeed very important that children know about all this right from the very start, leaving it too late to tell them that the Torah is a personal love letter, and making them think that it's just another subject that they have to learn until later, and teaching them later is not a good idea. Chazal don't let us do that. So by the time we get to the third question, I'm going to give an example of a higher lesson. I'm going to take something that is well known and show it on a higher level. But before that, let's get on to the second question. In this week's parasha, when Moshe passes away, it says, Bnei Yisrael wept. But for Aaron, when he passed away, it says, Kol Beit Yisrael wept. And Rashi says that this is because with regards to Aaron, the men and the women wept. But with regards to Moshe, only the men wept. Now what's the reason for this? The reason for this is the different roles that Moshe and Aaron took, and the different personalities that they had. The Torah teaches us that Aaron's personality was one of kindness. It was rooted in kindness. And as a result, one of his main jobs as leader of the Jewish people was to be a peacemaker, especially between husband and wife. He was known as bringing shalom bayit. He would personally go and work with individuals, husbands and wives, and ensure that they had shalom and fix any issues. And as a result, he was greatly appreciated by all the women as well as the men, and everybody wept when he passed away. Now that is not to say that Moshe was not a peacemaker too, and in the next question I'm going to give an example of that. However, Moshe's approach to peacemaking was a bit different. We know from Chazal that one is allowed to, let's say, bend the truth when it comes to peacemaking. For example, Aharon would go to the wife separately and say, your husband, he told me that he feels really bad, and he told me that he wants to reconcile. Even though he hasn't said it to you, he can't say it to you, but he said it to me, and I just want to let you know. And then he would go to the husband and say, the wife told me that she wants to reconcile, she's really sorry, she just can't say it. And he would bend the truth like that, and it would work. It would bring husband and wife together, and this is considered permissible according to halacha, so long as you know what you're doing. And that disclaimer at the end is extremely important, because giving a permission to lie is obviously a very, very grave thing to do, and most people shouldn't be doing this, and if they are, they should be doing it very sparingly and make sure that it's always, always, always in the interest of others and never self-serving. Lying is a massive aveira in the Torah. So let's be careful. That's why we call it, say, bending the truth or concealing the truth. This is what Aaron did, and he was greatly praised for it. Moshe, on the other hand's personality was founded in truth. So he could not conceal the truth, not even for a minute. And he spent his whole life like that, leading the Jewish people with firm truth. And that is higher than kindness, and that's why he was the leader over Aaron. However, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, on his deathbed, he came to realize the value of Aaron's approach as well. And this is a common theme in the Torah, that a person can grow and grow and grow the way they've been made, taking advantage of their positive attributes and their skills and the things they're good at, and improving them into perfection, like Moshe did with his personality of truth, as well as, putting away our tendencies to sin, our individual proclivities, and getting a handle on them. That is the route to perfection. However, the highest level of perfection is going beyond our personality into a different realm, something that's not right for us. Like, for example, Avraham, his personality was kindness, and he was tasked with his final test was doing something that was not a kind act, it was a just act, sacrificing his child because God said so. That is something that the personality or the midah of justice sees value in, but kindness finds very hard to accept. So when Avraham did that, he reached a whole new level, and that is his greatest praise. And so too with Moshe, he reached the 50th gate of Bina when he passed away, and in part this was because he came to appreciate Aaron's way of doing things. He came to understand that kindness and truth can go together. Now, what's the final question that the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked in this parasha? It's a very interesting one. The final piece of Torah is listing Moshe's greatness, giving examples of how great he was. And the very final thing it says is, and all these great things were in front of all the eyes of Israel. That's how the Torah finishes. Now, everything in the Torah has a meaning, a specific meaning, as well as a general one. So what is the specific meaning of in front of all the eyes of Israel? Rashi explains that this is referring to the incident when Moshe smashed the first set of tablets, the first luchot. In fact, Rashi's final word in the Torah is, and he broke them. So, why is the Torah finishing on such a negative note? Surely breaking the holiest object that was ever fashioned, literally carved by Hashem himself in precious gems that don't exist on earth, miraculously hovering letters, and you can go into that. And it's the Torah, it's a gift from Hashem, and Moshe smashed it. Surely that's a negative, right? Why is this listed among Moshe's praises? Why is it the way the Torah finishes? And also, how does this gel with the idea that you should always finish on a positive note, which is a clear principle of morality that's brought down by Chazal and Gemara? So, we need to tell a story to understand this. Moshe had been up Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. He's been learning Torah without eating, sleeping, or drinking. He's been pouring his heart out, bleeding over this, working really hard with Hashem to learn the Torah, to bring it down, to give it to the Jewish people. As he comes down the mountain, he sees his beloved Jewish people, and then off to the side, in a corner somewhere, he sees a handful of them bowing down to an idol. Now, Moshe had an emotion here, and his emotion was correct. But let's go through it from a point of view of rational thinking. What was Moshe thinking behind the emotion? He was thinking, I'm carrying in my hands a contract. Once the Jewish people receive this, they will be bound by the contract. And the contract says that if a person bows down to idols, terrible things will happen to him. Terrible things. Now, I can continue and go down and give this contract, and those riffraff over there, vast minority of people, they're going to have to suffer those terrible consequences, but tough luck, that's their problem. At least the 99% of Jews that didn't do this will get their Torah. And then he said, no, every Jew, no Jew left behind. And he smashed them. And that was the Rashi says it arose in his heart to do this. And Hashem said, shkoyach, well done, I agree. This is what the whole nation saw. They were looking at Moshe, they saw him glance over at those people bowed down to idols. They saw him smash the luchot, and in that instant they got it in their heart, their soul, in their gut. They knew that Moshe loved every single one of them above everything and anything else, even above the Torah, which of course Moshe loved and adored, and even above Hashem, which is something that some people need to know. Like, do you love me more than you love Hashem? That's an interesting question that we can delve into sometime. Should we love Hashem more than each other? Turns out, that Hashem approved of what Moshe did, so it's not so clear that Moshe loved the people more than Hashem. But either way, he was expected to. He's the Jewish leader, and a Jewish leader has to love his flock. Has to. They are his masters. He's the slave. And yeah, Moshe said, I'm not even going to leave one Jew behind. If anybody is going to be hurt by this contract, even one Jew, this contract is going to be ripped up. And that's what he did. And Hashem said shkoyach. And it was ultimately the greatest, most profound display of love and dedication and loyalty by a leader. And it's in fact the perfect way for the Torah to end. So I hope that took that story up to another level. It's based on Rashi. I just changed the mashal a bit. And also it explains that Moshe, yes, he was a peacemaker too. Shabbat Shalom.